Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and technically doing a Gravekeeper deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is the ultimate graveyard lockdown deck based around one of the most powerful field spells ever created, Necro Valley. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description for every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Spiritualist. This card is basically a walking polymerization, which is awesome to be able to fusion summon into your copy of Supernaturalist with this card and another spellcaster type monster. We then play 3 copies of Gravekeeper Commandant. This card is a really awesome 3 of the deck that has a super simple effect that you discard this card to the graveyard to add a Necro Valley from your deck to your hand, which is an extremely important effect because we want to get to Necro Valley as quickly as possible. We then play a single copy of Gravekeeper's Heretic. Gravekeeper's Heretic is a really good one of the deck that this card is on the field is unaffected by the effects of cards as long as Necro Valley is on the field, which is really cool that this card is basically just immune to everything as long as Necro Valley is on the field. I then play a single copy of Gravekeeper's Headman to round out the monsters. This card is a really good one-up. If this card is summoned, you can target a level 4 Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard and special summon it in attack position or in face down defense position, and you can only use the effect of this card once per turn, and it is unaffected by the effect of Necro Valley, which is really good for us so that we can get some of our Gravekeepers out of the grave. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is extremely important in this deck because, again, we want to get to our copy of Necro Valley as quickly as possible. We then play 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires is just a really good 2 of in this deck because this card comes in extremely handy to be able to banish 10 off the top of our deck and then draw 2 cards, especially since the majority of the important cards in this deck we're playing at 3 each. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Duality. Pot of Duality is really good because we actually don't special summon all that much during our turn, so being able to excavate the top 3 cards of our deck and add 1 to our hand is really good. We then play 2 copies of Hidden Temples of Necro Valley. This card is insanely powerful and a definite 2 of in this build. I did consider playing 3 copies of this card, but I ended up with just 2 copies of it in this build because I would break when I would play 3. But it's really good because it has the ability to activate only if both a Gravekeeper monster and Necro Valley are on the field. Neither player can special summon monsters except Gravekeeper monsters, and if either a Gravekeeper monster or Necro Valley is not on the field, you have to destroy this card, which is a really powerful effect on this card to be able to just basically lock down special summoning. We then play 3 copies of Necro Valley. Necro Valley is one of the most powerful field spells ever created and is extremely powerful right now in the meta and has a really awesome effect that all Gravekeeper monsters gain 500 attack and defense. And cards in the graveyard cannot be banished, and you negate any card effect that would move a card in the graveyard to a different place and negate any card effect that changes the type or attribute of cards in the graveyard. Basically, lock down the graveyard, which is really good right now in the meta, and it's why I'm really enjoying playing this deck. I'm then playing 3 copies of Royal Tribute. Royal Tribute is insanely powerful in the deck, and why we have such a low monster count in this particular build, because if you control Necro Valley, both players have to discard all the monster cards in their hand, which is an extremely powerful effect, especially with so many monster-heavy decks running around right now. This card is a definite 3 of in this build, especially since we're only playing about 8 monsters in the main deck. We then play 3 copies of Necro Valley Throne. This card is basically the Rhoda for the deck. It lets us add a Gravekeeper monster from our deck to our hand, or immediately after this card resolves, you get to normal summon a Gravekeeper monster, which we're never using that effect. We're just using this card to add a copy of a Gravekeeper monster from our deck to our hand. I'm then playing 3 copies of Super Polymerization. This is just a really good 3 on the deck just to break our opponent's board. If they do establish a board and we end up getting pushed to go second with this deck, you can use Super Polymerization to break the opponent's board and then activate your copy of Necro Valley, or activate Necro Valley first to be able to lock down those monsters once they touch the graveyard. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Necro Valley Temple. This card is a really good one-of in the deck, and I really enjoy playing this card in the deck. It is an awesome effect that while a Gravekeeper monster and Necro Valley are both on the field, monsters that your opponent control lose 500 attack and defense, which is really good to combo with your copy of Necro Valley because Necro Valley boosts all of our different Gravekeeper monsters up by 500 attack. This will drop our opponent's monsters down by 500 attack, which is really good because then you'll put a gap of about 1,000 attack points between your monsters and your opponent's monsters. This card also has a really good effect that once per turn during the main phase, if you control no card in your field spell zone, you can activate a Necro Valley directly from your hand or graveyard, which means you'll always be able to put a copy of Necro Valley on the field. And if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can set a Necro Valley spell or trap directly from your deck, except another copy of this card, which is a great effect. We then play 3 copies of Crackdown. Crackdown is really good in the deck because basically when you have cards like your copy of Hidden Temple on the field, your opponent's going to be very reliant on their normal summon. So this card is really good to be able to target an opponent's monster that's face up and take control of that opponent's monster, which is just really a great effect to be able to use in this deck. I then play 3 copies of Skill Drain. Skill Drain is really good in the deck as well, because Skill Drain just locks down monster effects. We really don't worry too much about the monster effects in this particular deck, because we can just normal summon out our Gravekeeper monsters to our side of the field, put Hidden Temple on the field, flip a copy of Skill Drain, and control the board extremely easily against the opponent, while also locking down the graveyard with Necro Valley. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Strike. Solemn Strike is really good in the deck because when a monster would be special summon or a monster effect is activated, you pay 1,500 life points to negate the summoner activation if you do destroy it, which is a great effect to be able to have in this deck to be able to just stop the opponent in their tracks. I then play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment just to make sure that we're going to tell our opponent no. But this card is really good that basically just says no to anything by paying half your life points, which as long as you have life points to pay, you have half to pay for this card, which is why I play this card as a 3-of in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Supernaturalist. I did consider cutting this card down to 2, but I still really feel like 3 is the best number for this card. It has a really good effect that it just takes any 2 Gravekeeper monsters to be able to summon out Supernaturalist, and usually you're using Spiritualist to be able to summon out this card with one other Gravekeeper monster. It has the ability to gain attack and events equal to combined original levels of the monsters used for this card's fusion summon times 100, so usually it'll be gaining about 800 attack points off its effect. And then while Necro Valley is on the field, this card and any card in your field spell zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then during your main phase, you can activate this effect that during the end phase of this turn, you can add a Gravekeeper monster or a Necro Valley card from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect to be able to use with this card to be able to search out any of your Necro Valley spells or traps, or add a copy of a Gravekeeper monster from your deck to your hand, like a copy of Headman, that'll help you swarm the board a little bit. We then play some super poly targets. I'm playing a single copy of the Predaplant Trip. This card is really good in case your opponent puts 3 dark monsters on the field. You can use super poly to be able to out them with this card, which is really nice. Play a single copy of Starving Venom. Starving Venom is really good as well as a big boss monster that you can put on the field that you're going to basically use 2 of your opponent's dark monsters to summon out this card with super polymerization. I'm then playing a single copy of Dracos Tapalia. Dracos Tapalia is also really good in the deck because you just use an opponent's fusion monster plus a dark monster to make this card, which we do play a couple of dark monsters in this deck. Play a single copy of Mud Dragon. Mud Dragon's also really good in this deck as a 1-of to be able to deal with your opponent's cards with super polymerization. And finally, 1 copy of Garura for the super poly targets. Garura is just really good overall, and it's probably the easiest one to summon out because it just takes 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names, which is really easy to do in today's meta. I then play a single copy of Baguska just in case I need to lock down the opponent to wait out until I get to my copy of Necro Valley. This card is just really good overall and a fantastic card in this deck. I'm then playing a single copy of Gaga Cowboy. This is so we can cowboy for game just in case we need to. And it's just a really good card overall right now, especially with time rules. And it's just a great card in this particular deck. We then play a single copy of Boral Sword. The reason I'm not playing Access Code is because Access Code has to banish cards from the graveyard to use its effects, which is really not good for us because we have Necro Valley in the deck and it makes it so we can't move cards out of the graveyard. So I chose to play Boral Sword instead, which is a great OTK piece in this deck. I'm then playing a single copy of Unicorn so that we can spin stuff. Phoenix so we can pop spells and traps, Cerberus so we can pop monsters, and then finally a single copy of IP Masquerena. The IP Masquerena is really good so that we can go into Unicorn during the opponent's turn, and it's just a fantastic card. One card I did consider putting into the extra deck is a copy of Zeus, which is an option for you guys if you want to drop a single copy of the Gravekeeper Supernaturalist. That is an option for you guys if you want to. I feel like 2 would be totally fine, but that's really the only changes I would make to this extra deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Gravekeeper before, I highly recommend it. It's very simple to play. Basically, establish your copy of Necro Valley on the field, and then summon out a Gravekeeper monster and back it up with all sorts of different trap cards to be able to close out games, which is really fun to be able to do. Especially combo with cards like your copy of Hidden Temple is just great in this deck to be able to lock down the opponent from special summoning. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of our notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.